y'all? It's your host, Big Paypa. And I'm coming to you with another segment of Federal Nightmarez. This segment is totally different. And we're at the state capitol with Senator Joyce Elliott. And it's an honor to have you on my show. And I really appreciate you giving me the time to be here with you.
Well, I'm happy to be here. We've been trying to get this done. We knew we were going to be doing this, and so I'm delighted to do this because I looked at your stuff and it's impressive.
Right.
It's impressive.
Yeah, so a lot of people didn't understand what it was when I first said it.
Yeah.
But Federal Nightmarez is a platform to get mental health, for inmates.
Right.
So that's what I'm advocating. That's what I'm pushing. And that's what I'm.
Well, that's what happens to visionaries. People don't get it the first time around.
Right.
They don't see what you see.
Right.
So it's important to have people who have eyes so that you can open other people's eyes, and that's what you're doing.
Yeah.
Be patient with them. They're learning.
That's what I'm doing. I'm just growing, and I'm just being patient, and I'm staying on a positive path, and being positive people, and trying to take it to the next level.
That's fantastic.
So, tell me about the small town girl that grew up in Wheelsville.
And small town is for real. If anybody knows anything about Arkansas at all, I grew up in South Arkansas, in Nevada County, which is one of the smallest counties in the state. And then on top of that, I grew up in one of the smallest little city is not the word, but a little wide space in the road, but Willisville. That's where I grew up. And when I first started school, we had segregated schools. And I've gone to segregated schools until I was in the ninth grade, 10 through 12 is where I finished school. And the school was so small. There were only 9 people in my graduating class.
Only 9?
9.
And he was a good basketball player.
I was a good basketball player because in Willisville there was not much to do. So if you had any kind of skill with basketball, and I played with the boys, outside with the goals and that kind of thing too, because we didn't have that many people, so sometimes they needed girls playing. But it was just a good outlet for me, and it was a big deal in our community, girls basketball. So, but I love trying to be the best. So I practiced a lot because I kept thinking, girl, boy, whoever, I'm going to be better than other folks.
So by when you came, you was the second black girl to graduate from high school. You first was a sister.
That's right. That's
so
right.
I know y'all had to deal with like racism how you was coming in.
Yes. When we were first required to go to the all-white school, there were about 6 families who went initially. But then at the semester, because people really didn't want us there, just as the law had said, you have to integrate the schools. So I had been going to an all-black school that was a rather large school because all of the kids in the southern part of the county went to one school, the black kids had long bus ride. I had almost a 2-hour bus ride to get to the black school where I was going. And when people talk about busing, I can tell you about some busing.
Right.
But so when there was a requirement that you have to integrate the schools, rather than have none of the white kids had to move. There were about 5 or 6 small white schools around. So about 6 families in my area went to Willisville High School. We were called in that semester and told that we could go back to our black school at the end of the year. You could go and we expect you to go. And that just made me so angry because by then, my whole world had been turned upside down because at the other school, I knew I was going to get, I was going to graduate with 1 in my class. That was my goal, and I was on the way to it because that was the only way I was going to get to college to get that scholarship. So we were called into the hallway and had a meeting with all the black students and told, we could go back to our schools, our black school, and they expected us to do so. And by then, I had caught on to, if we do what other people tell us to do, because they don't want us there, there's probably a good reason I'm gonna stay here. So I just decided I'm not staying, I'm not going. And I was thinking, oh my God, I don't know if anybody else is gonna stay or not. But as it ended up, my family wasn't on the one that stayed. And so my sister, my older sister, she graduated first and I graduated second. But really it turned out really strange, the racial stuff that went on, because it was really hard that sophomore year. Like I didn't get to play basketball, for example, something that was really important. Well, what the coach told me was he didn't have a uniform that would fit me. And that was a bad scene because I was so hurt and I was so angry when he said that. And I knew it couldn't possibly be true. So I said, well, I could have thought of something better than that to say, and I'm only 15. That didn't go over well. That didn't go over well. But when I was a junior, that year, I did get to play because there literally weren't enough girls to play to make a team unless they let us play. My sister played as well. I think I got the brunt of most of the prejudices that we encountered, because I did not know, for instance, when I first got there, that I was going to be treated differently because I had really good grades. Like I told you, I was working toward getting that scholarship. And there was one day, the principal, not long after school started, the principal and the superintendent called me from class into the office. And when I went in, it was a small office, we were all really close together, it was kind of like about here. And it was me and these two big white men. And they threw my transcript down on the desk, and I saw it was my transcript. And I felt good about that because I thought, well, this is great because I know I have good grades. They're gonna like me. But as it turned out, that was not the case. What they said to me, first they questioned, where did you get these grades? And I was afraid by then, and here I was trying to, I needed to say something to make this not, make it better. So which was the wrong answer. But I just said, well, they just rained down from heaven. Wrong answer. And people got really angry then. But the bottom line was, when they asked me, where did you get these grades? And assured me, I would not get these grades in this school. That didn't happen to my brothers and sisters, not because they were not smart or anything, but I was the one who was a threat to the white kid who was supposed to be the valedictorian. Yeah. And I did not know at the time. Later on, they called him in and told him about my grades, and that if he wanted to be the valedictorian, he better do something about me. So he just had permission from adults to bully me. Yes, yeah. That was really hard, and so that's what made it harder for me. The fact that I was perceived as being some kind of threat. First year, and there were, a few students who tried to be helpful and more friendly. Most were just kind of indifferent and things like, I don't want to sit by you and that kind of business. But we persisted, and so we all graduated from that school.
So what prepared you to want to do politics?
I really saw something that happened when I was like about 10 years old or so. I didn't know anything about politics, but I was really aware. I always paid attention to how people talking about voting and how things are not right. And I would see particularly my grandfather and my grandmother and older people like that not being call by their first names and having to call young white kids, but miss so-and-so. And, but people, I just sense this fear in people where they couldn't be who they wanted to be. And I noticed though, when they talk about voting, they're always whispering and kind of bent, and just as you said, so you've probably seen this. Yeah. But when John F. Kennedy was running for office, I was at 10, I think it was. I saw, because he was running for office, these same people started to stand up straight and talk out loud about things. I didn't know the word politics, but it was all because of him. So I saw them believe things were going to be different because of what they saw in him and what they thought he saw in them as well. So it's kind of like a humane thing. So I just thought then, because I witnessed this in real time as a kid, I don't know what that is he's doing, but I want to do that. And of course, later on, I learned it was politics, because I always wanted to be in a position where I could help people. And I just never lost that desire to be in politics, and I always thought it was a good thing because it could be used for good. Yeah, and I never lost it, and I learned to be a teacher too at the same time, because I thought, my experience particularly, I thought people should not be treated that way as kids. Hi everybody, I'm Joyce Elliott, and I am the Executive Director of Get Loud Arkansas. And Get Loud about what you ask? We are getting loud about making sure we get everybody in our state of Arkansas registered and to the polls so that your voices will be heard.
I'm Richard Walton. I'm the Civic Engagement Coordinator at Get Loud Arkansas. We're coming to a town near you.
Absolutely. We want you there. We need your help. Get Loud Arkansas.
So in 2001, your first year in office,
Yes.
started a hate crime legislation.
Yes.
So it's like, was it something that happened when you was younger to make that one of the first things on your list when you got in office?
Well, I did see, and mostly things I've read about.
Right.
Because, I was a big reader, and I read about Emmett Till.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'd heard my mother in particular talking about what happened with Emmett Till.
Mm-hmm.
And I was really lucky that I was coming of age in the 60s.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw a lot of things happen that were so unjust. And Medgar Evers, being killed, and Dr. King being killed. My senior year was the year that I was in my junior year, I guess going to my senior year, where Dr. King was killed. So I saw all these things that happened that seemed like they were so unjust and had racial undertones to them. And there were some states who had passed the hate crimes law. And it was because of what I'd seen, and I knew not to be a good thing. This is why I'm elected, but we need to change things, so you gotta start it.
Right.
But it was really interesting though, because this is my first year. With a bill, it can start in the Senate, and then when it gets to the House, somebody else has to take it up. I was on the Judiciary Committee where it had to go through. I wanted to be on the Education Committee because that was my expertise, but and when it came to our committee, nobody wanted to do it. I thought it would be so much better if someone who'd been there longer, had more relationships, but nobody stepped up. And I thought, this is what I'm here for. We'll find it. And we weren't able to get it passed. We was in pretty good shape. It passed the Senate. So it was in pretty good shape to pass, but then it made sure if you couldn't just create a crime against somebody just because of their race, and your religion was important. But it also had in their sexual orientation. And there were some people apparently who thought it was okay if you just create a crime against somebody for their sexual orientation. That's what it was called then.
Right.
So it was really a group, I was so surprised, it was really a group of pastors who caused it more than anything not to pass, because they wanted me to take out sexual orientation. And I said, but you were asking me to run a hate crimes bill where I'm gonna agree that it's okay to create hate crimes against somebody? I never felt that certain people were, it was okay. I don't care who you are, because I didn't have the position that I didn't decide I was going to be straight. I didn't decide that. That just happened to me. And the whole hate crimes bill was about you can't commit crimes against people just because of who and what they are. And so they said, well, if you don't take it out, we're going to, speak against it, and they did. And what it probably did was gave some people on the committee also a reason to say, well, we'll go ahead and not do it. But I kept trying.
So I seen in 2009, President Obama endorsed it.
Yeah.
So how did that feel?
It was really good. It was a good thing, because I ran for Congress. I was running for Congress, and it was actually 2020 that he introduced, when I was running for Congress, And I never thought I would do it. But he gave me an endorsement, and then when he came to Arkansas in 2008 and 9, that's when we took that picture. He came here to work for Mike Beebe, who was running for governor at that time. So he has been, pretty helpful here in Arkansas. Unlike Arkansas, limited me back, that kind of thing. Yeah, that felt good. And Kamala Harris and several other people as well. Yeah. I do want to say, because I think it's important that people hear, I'm not one of those people who puts down politics. I think politics should be used for good. And I want good people to run for office, because it is the way we run this country. And it's important that good people are in politics running this country. So folks need to expect and demand more from politicians, rather than just let them get away with saying, people will say, oh, they're all just thieves and crooks and all that. First of all, not everybody is, but secondly, require them not to be, and rather than just saying, no point in me talking to Joyce Elliott or whoever it is. She's not, she's not ever going to do anything. She won't even talk to me. Make them talk to you anyway, because they expect you not to demand anything of them. And every time you don't, they have a license to keep doing what they're doing. I just want people to remember that. Good politics. Yeah.
Well, like I said, I'm coming out visiting a facility called Release One, Teach One. And it's going to be for inmates once they get released. The first thing they do, they come and get mental health assessment. And once they get assessment and get the assistance they need, I'll get them into a high-end trade course. But then they can come out with mental health help, a high-end trade, and then they can go back to society. We're trying to reduce the amount of people think.
Right.
So
that's great. And that's so great, because you almost have to be under a rock to recognize that where people have those kind of opportunities, these are not the people that are creating a lot of crime. Because when you have the best thing against recidivism, which is probably what you're thinking, is for people to be employed, have good mental health, just like anybody else. So that would be a really good thing, and something so necessary, because people don't have a chance or a second chance unless you create the conditions where they can have a second chance.
I feel the state of Arkansas and ABC would most definitely benefit. Yes.
Because and the mental health part is really important. A lot of people don't think about that. But if you have been in prison, and it's just normal. We're not made to be in prison. And so that's going to affect your mental health. Okay, so things happen and people do go to prison. It still affects their mental health. Just because you're mad at them or you think that they deserve to be in prison, you got to understand, no matter why you're there, when you get caged in anything, you know that Maya Angelou has a book called "I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings," because birds are not used to being caged. So they do something abnormal. they sing and I've seen some, just beat their heads to bleeding. Well, a bird has a small brain. People have really big brains. So think about the effect of somebody with a really big brain. I don't care what they've done as when it comes to knowing everybody's mental health needs to be worked on. Because some people act as if you help somebody who's in prison, oh well, then you're just babying them. I mean, people are going to get out of prison.
Right.
They need to come out as whole as they can. And part of that is the mental health. And we don't do a lot about it.
No.
So you need to keep putting that out front. That's really good.
That's my platform.
Yeah.
I don't think it's enough mental health facilities around for inmates.
That's right.
You know what I mean? We really need it. That will reduce the amount of repeat offenders. I know it will.
Yeah.
It starts right here.
Yes. I was forever, as a legislator, I chaired this. There was a subcommittee where we would deal with a lot of things having to do with prison. I finally got to chair that committee. And I was always asking the folks who had the vendor, the folks who were making the money, who was there for mental health, for psychological reasons and so forth. I was forever asking, do we have enough people to do what we need to do to help people out, mental health wise? And I was always, well, yeah, I think we do it. You think we do, or do we?
Right.
And it was never seemed to have been taken seriously. I just kept pushing on it, and then of course, I heard from people a great deal. When I was in the legislature, and still do now to an extent, and I still see people who wrote me letters. Ran into somebody on my walk the other day. But I was always hearing from folks who needed help and were not getting it.
So do you have any ideas for any programs that might help inmates get into the mental system?
Well, I know that we're about to, invest $500 million or so in a prison.
Right.
And I know that we still have a lot of the funds, that we got because of COVID. And this is a choice we made. We could fund something our state, we could fund something like that, just as surely if we were dedicated to doing so. The budget will show what you care about. I want people to think of the budget, as a moral document. And what we choose to fund and what we don't choose to fund says a lot about who and what you care about. And there is no question we have the money in Arkansas right now, because we're always bragging about these huge surpluses that we have. So it would stand to reason probably there would need to be somebody at least who is empathetic and cares about this. So somebody has to take the lead on getting with legislators and getting them to make a proposal is how it would have to work in most cases. Sometimes though, when you create, like if you were to create a 501c3 or whatever is a way of doing this, you got to be able to find people and so forth to work in it. But somebody has to put a spotlight on the folks who've been in prison and help people understand this is a part of whether or not they're going to be able to successfully be a returning citizen, So they're not right now, right off the top of my head, because we don't have enough mental health professionals for anybody. But we shouldn't exclude anybody either. And we keep saying we're going to address it. So, but what it needs somebody who is going to be the one who will never let people forget.
That's
And
me.
I think that's you.
That's me.
I
Yeah.
think it is.
I ain't gonna let her forget.
That's right. And I know what it means to keep on working at something because I had to do that the whole time, well, all my life, because I'm not going to sit still where y'all take away my grace from me. I'm going to make it in the way that I'm going to do it. But right now, that is a real important issue. I see people who need it. I live in a community where the people that we're talking about live in the community where I live. I see them at the gas stations, I see them at the grocery stores, and like I said, I saw the guy and his family the other day when I was out walking, and he stopped me and he went, "Oh, Cindy Elliott, that's you." And that made me feel good because I was happy that he knew that I cared and that it was okay to stop and let's have a conversation. We need more caring about people.
So you being a former teacher,
Yeah.
do you feel like early childhood mental health should be at the forefront? Like they should talk about that more and put more into it?
Yes. Kids are growing up with a lot of trauma today. And that's true of kids who are well-to-do and those who are not well-to-do. But those who grow up in struggling homes and struggling neighborhoods in particular many times, they have grown up with a lot of trauma, and trauma doesn't just up and evaporate. It's not something like written on my chest. More trauma, more trauma. So as adults, I think we ought to be smart enough to recognize a lot of times when a kid is acting out, especially in elementary school, when you start doing things like suspending elementary kids, there's something going on other than they just want to make you mad because you are not that important. They're trying to tell you something about themselves, and they don't have the word to describe their mental state.
I mean, for a long time, when I was a kid, I always felt anxious.
Yeah.
I didn't know what anxiety was.
That's right.
So I was having panic attacks and didn't know. Yeah, so.
And we act as if kids are, they're happy-go-lucky. They went to the playground and they played. That doesn't mean everything is all right. Because you got to go back and have that quiet time at some point when you're trying to figure something out and other things are going on, in your head. And I really think that we treat little kids like they're small adults, and it's up to us. There is I'm trying to think of the tribe and the Maasai tribe in Kenya. The first thing they say to you when they meet you in the morning, they don't say good morning, but they say, "How are the children?" Then good morning. If we have that kind of attitude of how are the children, because that's the first thing, and like you said in your question, we're talking about little kids, then how are the kids? And start from that standpoint. And it's mental health and whether or not you've been successful academically as a little kid. I remember really struggling when I was in the second grade academically because there were so many other things happening. I don't know why I couldn't concentrate, but I know I failed the second grade. If I'm already having problems and things are not, in my head, I can't figure things out, and then you fail a class a whole year, now the mental state is even lower than it.
Right.
We just need to pay attention.
Like I said, $500 million that could be used for after-school programs, STEM programs that could be used for reentry programs when they get ready to come home, teach them how to do emails, applications, and not just build more cribs.
That's right.
I think that's not going to stop the rise in crime.
Yeah.
It
never has it? I mean, it's just like every time we say, "Oh, there's so much traffic, we're going to build another lane so the traffic can move." No, you don't really. Every time you build a lane, you can check it. Every time you build another lane, like through Little Rock or someplace like that, all you do is fill up the lane. Every time. You just have a bigger traffic jam. So that's begging for another solution. And the same thing is true with, we're going to build more prisons. We're just going to lock up more people. And you got to serve 85% of your time and that kind of stuff. What you're saying, and I totally agree with this, and I've been trying to tell people, all the things that you're talking about, address the underlying conditions that make up the reason people end up in prison in the first place. That's the answer. Because if you're not ever going to address the underlying conditions, if your roof keeps leaking every time it rains, and you say, well, I'm just going to get more buckets, I'm going to put more buckets. Well, if you address that underlying condition, like get the roof fixed, it's just a common sense thing. It seems as if we're so determined to have so many people in prison that we can't see right in front of our faces. It's the things in people's lives that everything that happens because of some condition, and we won't look at that. And we want $500 million for another prison. And guess what we're going to do? Fill it up.
What business don't want you to come back?
Yeah.
Every business, so that's what they're going to do. Prison, they want them to keep coming back.
Prison is big business.
Mm-hmm.
I say all the time, prison and poverty. Prison and poverty are big business. There are so many people who become rich, and because poverty, they talk about people who are poor, oh, you're just sorry you don't want to work and whatnot and all that. And you're making money on poor people.
Right.
And there's a lot of folks who are in some high positions are rich because of Medicaid, for example. Same thing is true about when folks are locked up in prison. Somebody gets the vendor to be the mental health person. Somebody gets the vendor to be the pharmacy provider. Somebody gets the vendor to be the doctor, and somebody gets the vendor to be to be whatever is going on there, telephones, whatever.
Yeah.
That's one of the things
That's
that
the biggest one.
it's
The
big.
biggest thing.
And people are rich.
Those films.
And then worst of all, there are people who own private prisons, the whole thing, and they're making mega bucks. So people need to wake up to there is an incentive for we have more and more prisons because folks are going to make money. And if we were investing that money, like you said, on the other end, we'd be addressing the reasons that people end up in prison, just like we address the reason the water keeps coming to the house. Yeah.
Well, I really appreciate you being on my show.
Oh,
It
this
gave me
is
so much knowledge, and just I really appreciate it.
This is just wonderful.
I know I'm easy to come back.
Oh, absolutely. I would be happy to come back. Anything I can do to be helpful. I admire what you're doing, and I really hope you will keep it up. And remember, somebody has to be at the tip of the spear so other people can get help. The mental health issue, that's a big one.
Thank you. I appreciate it.